So now that I've got my data, I don't want anyone to just kind of nonchalantly have access to it. And we can do this a different number of ways. The first one I want to do is I'm going to go ahead and come to my Create tab, and I'm going to select Query Wizard. Now, a query we'll get into next week is this idea of asking a question of the database, of my table, and narrowing down what I see. So instead of seeing, my visitor ID and my patient ID, I don't really care about those things. Those are just ID numbers for the database. I want to just see my visit date and my reason and if they walked in or not. Now, for our sake, again, we've clicked on the Query Wizard. You see we get that simple Query Wizard. We'll go ahead and hit OK. And then, again, like I said, I only want to look at my date, my reason, and my walk-in or not. So those are the only three I really want to deal with. So I'm going to click on Visit Date. And you notice I've got the single arrow and double arrows. Double arrows move everything over. I don't want that. So I'm going to click the other double arrows, move them back over. I'm going to say Visit Date, single arrow. Reason, single arrow. Walk-in, single arrow. All right. We're going to hit Next. And that's going to say, okay, do you want a summary or a detailed response? Now, we're just learning about access, so we'll deal with just, we'll leave it as is. Show every field of every record. We'll hit Next. What do we want to name it? Guess what? It's already named for us. So we hit Finish. And again, what that did is it took the data from the visit table, and you notice 11.9, allergic reaction, diabetes. And it shows exactly that, 11.9, allergic reaction, whether it was a walk-in or not. It just narrows down all of the data I have into what I specifically asked for, which was, again, just show me date, reason, walk-in. So let's go ahead and close out of this. Again, we've got the little X arrow right here. And again, just like we said in Excel, I'm going to get lost in the sea of data if I work on this. And so I don't want that, especially if I think about my front desk clerk. They're going to be typing in a lot of patients, new patients, all day long. So I want them to, not get blurry-eyed. So one of the things I can do is over here in the Forms section, instead of Form Wizard, we'll use that a little later, I'm going to click on just Form. That actually takes everything that I have currently visible and it just presents it in a clean and, look at that, very nice way for me to mess around with it. And it allows me to view one record at a time. That's the nice thing about it. Now you notice I can't change anything here. This is actually a layout view. If I wanted to change my view, I would actually come over here to my view and select the drop-down menu for Form View. Now I can make changes to it. Or if I keep going, you notice down here in the bottom I have my records section where I can cycle through my records by clicking on that arrow. I can go to the last record by clicking on that arrow with a line, or I can go to a new blank record, and this is where I would do a new patient. Now for my sake, I'm going to go ahead and close out of this as well. Are you sure do you want to save the designs? Yes, I do. We're going to name this, instead of Visit, we're going to name it Visit Form. Now the last thing I want to do is, again, we're dealing with people who are not computer people wanting to mess around with our database. So one of the things we have at an emergency care is someone like a doctor. Well, a doctor is probably going to need to at least see the patient information, but not necessarily have access to changing it. So again, we head over to our Create tab, and again, just like we did with reports or forms, we're going to go to the Report section. Again, we'll deal with Report Wizard a little later, but if I just click on Report, it takes everything that's currently visible and slaps it in a nice little report. Now notice what's happened here. You see that I got 1550. I've got a little orange bar box around it, and then everything below it is also subsequently yellow. That's saying that if I make a change to this one, if I say, for example, mouse over here to the right and click, hold, and drag, notice the boxes are going everywhere. All of these are going to be changed, and they all move in. I'm going to do the same thing with patient ID. I'm going to click on that 22549 and resize it inward as well. that just puts everything now into one page. You can see I've got these little kind of dotted lines telling me where my page breaks are. And so I'm going to scroll down a little bit, a little bit, a little bit. And you see it's exactly that. It's just a report that I could then in turn print out and give to, the big boss man. Now the last thing I did want to do, I did want to maybe click on this. This is showing me how many records I'm looking at, how many different visits I've had, and we'll go ahead and just expand this out a little bit. I'm going to click on the drop down, or the diagonal, just to expand it out. And then this page ID, the only reason I want to move this is because right now it's on the dotted line, so technically speaking, if I did print this out, I'm going to have 2 sheets of paper up here. So I'm going to click, hold, and just drag it right below. You see all of my reasons right below it where I get this little kind of pinkish glow. And so now it's all in one page, one in theory page that I can then print. I'm going to close out of this. Do you want to save the changes? Yes, I do. I'm going to call this visit record. And the last thing I want to go ahead and do is I want to close out of my database. Now, we've added in a lot of data, and one of the things we have to factor in about that is when we start to manipulate the data, because we're being very precise, because I know this is text, a date, text, a Boolean data type. Because of that, when I add and remove data from the database, that kind of bundles it up, jumbles it up. So I have to be a little more careful. I have to actually do something called compact my database, because if I don't, it becomes slower. And we're only dealing with 86 records, but what if we were dealing with 86,000? We're Amazon, 86 million records. If I don't compact it down, all those areas where I've deleted data, well, they have to get traversed. I have to still access them as a computer, which slows it down. Again, think about that. If you were on a web page and it took more than 12 seconds to load that page, would you click somewhere else? Would you go somewhere else? Well, statistically, yes, that's a true statement. We will wait about 12 seconds before we try and go somewhere else. Someone like Amazon, which is just a database that sells stuff, they don't want you to go to eBay or I don't know who's like the main competitor for Amazon. I think they've killed everyone who else was like it. Well, Walmart, they don't want you to go to those websites, so they want their databases to be fast and efficient. So to compact our database, I'm going to close out of my visit table. Now I'm not closed out of my database just yet. I'm going to come over here to my file tab, and you see I get a few options. Well, I don't want to worry about that. That doesn't matter so much, but you see compact and repair. Compact and repair. It repaired my database. Now again, if we come back over to there, you notice I also had encrypt with a password. Again, if we think about a real world application for a second, something like an emergency care might store things like my credit card information or my social security number or my medical records. Well, I don't want that data to magically get into the hands of someone who's malicious, because again, that's federal regulation, HIPAA compliance. For any of you who are looking to kind of go into health informatics, HIPAA compliance is a big deal. So I might want to encrypt with a password occasionally. That's where that stuff can come into play. I don't have the date, whatever. But those are some of those options for dealing with our first database.